science and technology society should be considered as a seamless web. I would try to show that why that is. We also discussed on risks, we also discussed on values, and that is a topic that I will present tomorrow morning. Well, I will discuss my background, I will discuss technology innovation, then I hope to go into the topic of regulatory science, what we mean by it, and I have an example to show some of the things I would like to say, and I would like to use the example of the Green Revolution, just to take another example as biotechnology, because we already talked a lot about biotechnology. And in the end, I will come back to what I call the Gene Revolution, but that is more or less the same as what we mean by biotechnology. Something about my background. It was already said a little bit. I got an education in agriculture at the horticultural school. My father was a farmer. I worked for some years on my father's farm. But later on I started to study biology. I was very interested in ecology and biological things, and also in philosophy. And later on, when I finished my study in Groningen University, I got my PhD in biomedical research. It was quite different. But anyway, after that I moved more to the social sciences. I get appointment at the Science and Society group. I worked there already for 25 years, and I work on what you may call the interface between science, technology and society, and especially biotechnology and society. Nature conservation and restoration is one of the topics I work on, and also on animal ethics. Well, what already was said, I'm a member of the Committee on Genetic Modification in the Netherlands. It's advising the ministry on the release of genetically modified organisms into the environment. And I was also a member of the Committee on Animal Biotechnology, but that committee was stopped last summer, so it does not exist anymore. The Science and Society Group, it's located at the Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Sciences of our university. And the main issue they take into account is the interface between science and society. And we have three main activities: education for the students, we have some social services because we are advising some NGOs or societal groups, and we are doing research on this issue. Here you see a new building. I'm not located in this building, I'm just beside on it. It's the building for the life sciences. It's called Linnaeusborg. And here you see the building where our group is located. It's an old building. It will be smashed down within a few years, and then we have also a very new building. And here you see our university building in the center of the city. It's more or less 100 years old, and it's a very nice, fine building. It's in the center of the city. Anyway, our group, the Science and Society group, is, you may say, well, what we always say in the Netherlands, it's a strange duck in the ice hole, because we are doing something, and so we are doing social sciences, because we are studying from a social perspective how natural sciences evolve and how it interact with society. That is our topic. We have education, research on it. Of course, because of that aim, we have a very strong interdisciplinary approach. Most of our people in the Science Society group are natural scientists who changed later on in their career to social scientists and to the humanities, and therefore they have covered different methodologies and we can combine them. But we also have some sociologists in our group. And we use methods from social sciences and humanities to do that kind of research. How could such a group evolve in a faculty of mathematics and natural sciences? And that has to do with history. And here you see, of course, it's rather known. You see the nuclear bomb that was put on Hiroshima on the end of the World War, and you see the results of that. And that triggered a lot of discussion on the role of science and technology in our world. And was questioning what is science, what is technology actually doing with us, with our society? Is it always a good thing, or do they have also negative aspects? And that started a discussion on responsibility of scientists and technologists. And in 1955, there is a very important and famous manifest that was written and signed by the philosopher Russell and Einstein. And what they were saying is, well, we have to question the role of scientists in the development of mass destruction weapons. And that started a lot of discussion. Societies were established to discuss that, and to change how scientists could be involved in that, and how you could perhaps instruct or teach students who get involved in natural sciences to take care of that, and to give them more sense of responsibility. That was the background. And then later on, 10 years later, in the 1960s, we had a very famous book from Rachel Carson on the DDT case and the role of pesticides in the environment, and that also triggered a lot of discussion on the role, not in this case on nuclear physicists, but much more the biologists and ecologists, and chemicists. How are they involved in our society? What are they doing? And do they have an impact in what they are doing? And do they realize that? Well, there was a lot of discussion, especially in Europe and also in the United States, and that established the movement of science and society. And there was a lot of discussions to establish courses on that topic in the university in order to get some more responsible students and scientists later on. Well, a lot of questions of science. Of course, the nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, pesticide use, biological determinism. Some errors, I wrote it yesterday evening. So, genetics, social biology. There are a lot of discussions on how science and technology was involved in society. Agricultural technologies, for instance, and how to do animal experiments. Well, anyway, what they did was questioning the role of science. It's not a very uneasy feeling, of course, for many professors. And what do we mean by science? What is the question? Courses on science and society, that is what I'm often doing in normal life, you know, and what we are dealing in that course. And this is a course, it's an obligatory course for all students in the life sciences, in the natural sciences in our university. What we are doing is, what do we mean by science? Some science philosophy. What do we mean by technology? How is the interface working? How can we see that? Can and should we, this is another important question, of course, should we instill science and technology? And if we should do it, then we have to answer, can we do it? Is science and technology neutral? Well, the discussion we already had here. What does responsibility mean? And what does responsible research mean, actually? And how to make science and technology more transparent? It's an important question. How to involve stakeholders? And what is the impact of big companies on science and technology? Can we steer that impact? And do we always want that kind of impact? That are the issues and discussions we have in these courses on science and society. Nowadays, it's really it's recognized that this is important. Here you see a cover from Science magazine some years ago, and it said we have to bridge science and society anyway. The interface of science and society is important. We need to discuss the impact of science and technology on our society. We should take care how governance is related to the input of the scientists. How can we do innovation studies? And not least, but still important, is ethics of doing research. Well, when you look to our group, what we are doing here, we are doing research and policy making and governance, stakeholder participation. We have some projects on coastal natural areas and desertification. We are doing research on ethics of life sciences, for instance, animal experiments. I also wrote articles on how to deal with wild animals in our world, and do they have an ethical value or not. My colleague is working on stakeholder participation in energy transitions, and myself, I'm very involved in innovation studies on biotechnology, and also, well, this is a new project I'm working on plant breeding. Well, to go to the real world now, this is rather knowing, what we see in our world. We have a growing population, and we are now here somewhere, and there are some different expectations what is going on. Our fertility in the world now, if it goes on, we are really passing what is called the carrying capacity of our Earth. That is a wrong thing, of course, and everyone hopes that we can keep below that carrying capacity. But this is the challenge we have, and the challenge anyway is that we have to produce more cereals. It must be 8% times higher as it is now. For instance, in 2050, when it's expected that we have 9 billion people in our world, and that is the lowest, more or less the lowest estimation. It could also be higher if you see. So there is a very threatening situation in our world. How to realize, and then how to keep it in balance with our ecological and social conditions, which are, of course, also very important. And there are also often technology. And here you see a famous statement from Jeffrey Sachs, already made in 2000. Today's world is divided not by ideology, but by technology, he says. And 50% of all world's technology innovation is in the hands of the Western world, you may say. And 50% of the world population is able to adapt these technologies in production and consumption, but 35% is disconnected of our world. So there is a very big difference in access to technology in our world. And if technology is so important, then we should have much more access to technology. It should be also distributed on the world. Now, if we look to the role of technology, this is very interesting picture, because it is saying that technology is so important in relation to our population growth. And here you see a lot of what they call technological revolutions, and it is on one or the other way, it is just suggesting that it's related to population growth. For instance, you see here the second agricultural revolution that is more or less the green revolution, and nowadays we have the biotechnology revolution. But this relationship between technology and population growth is a little bit difficult, because technology may perhaps solve problems, but it may also make problems, may also cause problems. If you produce more food, for instance, the population can grow again and again. And I would like to show it with you here. Here you see the food production capacity, and here you see the population size. Well, if you are in this situation, of course, then we have a big problem. Then we have a shortage of food. And what we do is, by technology, we enhance our food capacity, food production capacity, and we do it again and do it again. And that is the role of science and technology. But what you also see here is that we solve it for a certain period of time, and then again we have a lot of problems again, So population growth perhaps is following our technological progress. So there is so technology is not the only solution. We have also to take care of population growth itself. And perhaps also technology can help with reproduction technologies and so on. But there's a two-sided aspect of technology and science with respect to our population growth. But anyway, different access to technology you can see here. If you look to the relative size of the countries as compared with respect to their technological capacity, you see that the United States is really a bit oversized as Europe is, as also as China is. And look to South Africa, look to Africa. They do not have really access, do not have technology available to take care of their problems. So there is this really illustrates the thesis of Jeffrey Sachs. You know this picture. I stole it from Henny. Because I would like to talk about technology, and I would like to talk about innovation now. And what we can see is the same. You see the same picture from. But what we can see here, well, we have a kind of an innovation chain, and the innovation chain that is a way of thinking of technology that is already well known, and you can see it here. Some people say it starts with research, then we have development, then we have production, and then we have marketing. And sometimes the research doing is really pushing the development, but we also know that sometimes the market is asking for something. And so you have two explanations how technology can develop in this picture. Is it a technology push, or perhaps it's the market demand system, or perhaps it's both? This is a way of thinking that is rather old, and for a long time this was the way they tried to explain how technology could evolve, because you can imagine that if you believe that technology push is important and you want to develop technology, you are pushing and developing technologies, scientists, and so on and so on. But on the way, you can also try to develop the market, of course. Quite different policy possibilities come from this model. And here's another, the same model, and some people say it's the money that works on this. But this way of looking to technology is a little bit simple, and I would like to put another model here on the screen, and that is called the evolutionary view on science and technology. And I should explain that here we have three different technologies, A, B, and C. What you see is different stages, and they are called selection and they are called variation, because it's evolutionary, so we can use these concepts. And every stage is a selection stage or a variation stage. And what is going on in this way of thinking is that there are several competing technologies, but there are also selections, and only one, or perhaps few, of these kind of technologies survive. And then again there is variation. And then again and again and again. So what you see here is that there are a lot of different steps, there are a lot of different technology developments possible, but only a few survive. And according to many people who are studying kinds development of technology, this is much more what is going on. It's very schematic here, of course. But what you also see here is you don't see the variation, because you only see the surviving types of technology. So looking back, it looks very linear. So often we have the idea that technology develops rather clearly, step from step to step in a linear fashion. But if you look deeper, you study what is going on, it's much more complex. And yesterday, Henny told us that to develop a GMO, it needs 60,000 innovation steps. Well, here you see all the different innovation steps. There are much more, of course. So I took again the model of Henny, and here you see all the different, I just turned it on its side. Here you see all the different steps in it. But I added some new steps, regulation on confined experiments, for instance, regulation on field trials, regulation on commercialization, regulation on market introduction, regulation on post-market surveillance. there are additional steps, so it is often much more complex. And also here we have all the different possibilities, and we only select one or a few. So development of technology is very, very complex. That is what I would like to say with this picture. Selection and variation factors. To understand how technology develops, to understand how GMOs are constructed and developed and how are they put in our society. We have different scientific paradigms, how we look to science. We have molecular biologists have a quite different way of looking to a GMO as many ecologists have. So we have different discussions. So that's a point to think about it. Funding for research is also a selection. If you don't want to have funding, you cannot do your research. It's so simple as it is. The market is a selection. Governmental policy and all law as a regulation systems. Well, if you take this into account, then you may also imagine that you have different levels of innovation. Of course, here you have what they call niche innovation. That is on the local side, that is in local research groups, in departments of big companies where they're doing and trying to develop new concepts and so on, and doing experiments. The technological innovation, but it often needs more. But the more general term is technological innovation. But also you need economic innovation. For instance, if you want to introduce a new GMO in a society and farmers have to buy it, they need also the possibility to get money. So there is a bank system needed. Or perhaps you need also political innovation. To establish regulation mechanism, as we are studying here in this conference, is also a kind of policy innovation. But it also needs institutional innovation. We need good working institutes to do that. And perhaps it also needs to change certain mindsets. So we need also a kind of cultural innovation. So it's clearly it is very complex, and you can distinguish between different levels. And of course, if you look only to this and we are forgetting the other levels, something may go wrong. But you should also understand that this is often very fast. You can do it in a number of years. But cultural innovation, institutional innovation often takes many years. And so if they are not in line with each other, we have problems. And I think that is perhaps one of the big issues behind all the problems we have with GMOs. The different philosophies of the different innovation levels that are at stake here. If you have any question, please raise your hand, because perhaps this is quite new for you, I don't know. But you really, you get it still? Okay, great. So if you look to this way of looking to innovation, then we can distinguish between several levels. So we have the niche innovation on the lower level, university research. So we have sometimes protected markets where they can do something. We have the middle level, this is seed firms, technology and science policy, investments. And this is often what we call technology development in a wider sense, but be aware on the social landscape, as they call it, we have laws, Patents Act, trade agreements, regulations, and they develop very slow. That is the message of this picture. The co-evolutionary view is also adapted by this. I think it's not ABE that this wrote. It was wrote. I think you know the report. But they say Africa should adopt the co-evolutionary approach where consumer protection goes hand in hand with the development of the technology itself. So yes, this is what I meant by innovation in a wider sense, where you have different stakeholders and different institutions and different aspects on the technology development. So looking to technology development from this perspective is quite different than the old way of looking to technology as you know, when I was a student in the 70s of the last century, 70s and 80s, and we had a lot of students, we had a lot of discussions with our staff. And the students, they said, well, we have to change our science, because we have to take into account the social aspects of. And then many staff members said, well, let us do the work, and on the end, you know, when we have produced our insights, when we have produced our technology, then society can talk about it, then we can have a discussion. Now that is quite old linear view of science and technology. And here you have some basic research, and on the end we have applications, and let the application be the issue of discussion. But what is going on nowadays is that many people discuss the role of technology in our society. And that is what we call a contextual view. It can happen on very different ways. And that is what I'm trying to say here. And biotechnology is an example of this. But I think also medical biology, biomedical developments are often an example of this development. You can think on, for instance, the discussion of vaccines. Then patient organizations are involved from the very beginning. The people say, well, society is really involved in the development of new medicines, but it is also true for biotechnology, and I think it's also true, for instance, for ecological sciences, because conservation is also a societal issue. Drivers of this term, you may say, well, it has of course to do that science and biotechnology, of science and technology, and of course biotechnology is an example, is such an important economic aspect of our world nowadays. It means that a lot of people are going to be involved. There is much external funding because of that, but if you have external funding, you have also external stakeholders that have a voice to say. So that is one of the factors. What's also going on is that there's much more complexity and uncertainty in nowadays scientific enterprises. Perhaps we have solved a lot of simple issues, but nowadays we have very complex issues. And then there is much more uncertainty. So that gives room for different perspectives on the problem, what we see also in biotechnology discussions. Modern science and technology do also have a lot of impact on our worldviews and values. In biology, for instance, there's nowadays a lot of discussion, for instance, on the role of neurology. Is there a free will or not? Social biology was a discussion in the 80s of the last centuries. How do people behave? Is that a cultural thing? Do we learn how we behave, or is it biologically determined? That are things that are affected or changed by how science could evolve. And last but not least is, especially in the Western world, we have much more educated people under our citizens. And also NGOs do have scientists in their organizations. And some people say, well, what is going on? Society talks back. So scientists and technology cannot escape the discussion anymore. And that is the driver of how of this turn to a contextualized version of science and technology. What time is it now? Okay. So innovation and technology development is more or less the same in my view, because it's intermixed. And what I understand as innovation is the co-evolutionary participative process implying mutual impacts of technology and local and global context. That is what I mean by innovation. And we have discussed a lot of context already, but here I have the agricultural context. That is how farmers are thinking agronomic conditions. We have to deal with the environmental conditions when we introduce, for instance, GMOs. We have to deal with the socio-economic context, the cultural context, and last but not least, the regulation context, which is an important aspect in modern innovation. So if you look to science and technology innovation, then you may say it is in the center of a lot of issues. And here you see all the different aspects of science, technology, and innovation. The social relations, morality and culture, education is important, but also the infrastructure and the roads and electricity must be available if you want to innovate. You need institutions, you need certain economic conditions, policy, politics, and regulation are involved. And of course, tradition, history, and existing technology. New technology cannot just put in a society. They also have, they should fit more or less to what is already there. So a very big change is often very difficult. So there is often a trajectory of development, and that has also to do with the idea of evolution. You know, we build up all the structures. And so technology does have often a kind of a history. And in other situations, we could have another technology, for instance. So it's important to realize the relativeness of our development, of our technological developments. So going back to regulators, Jesenov, there's a very interesting writer on regulation of science and technology,